See some of the impacts from Ida as we head through the day today, and then once we get into this evening we should start to see some improving conditions, but there will still be some very heavy downpours out there through the day today, and those could still cause some instances of flash flooding, gusty winds. We've got a wind advisory in effect. Winds have been gusting up to 30 and even 35 miles an hour this morning so far, and there's still a low end threat that we could see one of those very quick and brief tornadoes, especially for our eastern counties as we head through the day today. So you can see on our severe weather risk map, the main area that it really has the threat of seeing that happen would be these far eastern counties. So places like maybe Piedmont and Jacksonville, Anniston, down toward Lincoln and Talladega, over toward Ashland and Millerville. You folks really just kind of need to make sure you have a way to access weather information through the day today and get alerts should a warning be issued. So a few strong or isolated severe storms possible here, with a brief tornado being the main threat. Winds, again, sustained winds on the order of 15 to 25 miles an hour. However, we do have gusts up to 30 and maybe even up to 35 miles an hour expected at times today. We do have a wind advisory in effect because of that. There's the actual center of Ida, and you can see it here up into northeastern sections of Mississippi, but it'll be moving across northwest Alabama before it pulls up into Tennessee through the day today. Here's a look at our WVTM 13 live Doppler, and you can see some bands of heavy rain still ongoing across central Alabama. We've got this larger area of rain that continues to march to the east pretty slowly though, and eventually will be impacting the metro area too. So it's going to be a soaking wet morning out there. We do have a flash flood watch in effect through 7 o'clock early this evening, with some spots maybe picking up an additional 1 to 2 inches of rain before things start to finally kind of quiet down. So another alert day today with high rain chances. Again, some flash flooding possible, gusty winds, and that isolated tornado threat too. And then I do think once we head into this evening, we will start to see our rain chances dropping significantly for Wednesday and the rest of the week. The humidity is going to drop too over the next couple of days. Those morning temperatures, Harmony, by the end of the week down into the low and mid 60s.
Nice to have something to look forward to, especially when you have to hit the roads and you're not looking forward to it when the roads are covered up with water. In Pinson, so near Ledbetter Road, Red Hollow Road, Pinson Valley Parkway, the creeks, rivers, and streams are swollen, and so all the water that's coming from the sky is trying to make its way into the tributaries, but unfortunately it's getting caught on the road. So in between Spring Street and Sweeney Hollow Road, that entire intersection covered up with water. Oxmoor Road, get you a closer inspection here. This is right now an intersection that's closed. Oxmoor Road closed. This is near Palisades Boulevard, so this is right around the corner from the station here. Trees down pretty much everywhere, and even without a wind gust, the soil is so saturated sometimes on those inclines, it just takes gravity to take down some of those trees. I-65 northbound moving at 5 miles per hour as folks are approaching that detour. And so the detour right now, the interstate is shut down, but it looks like from a camera that we have is that folks are going around the incident on the shoulder, but you're only going around the incident on the shoulder at 5 miles per hour, and you're typically going through that area at 65 miles per hour. So this is Alabaster in between Calera, the Shelby County Airport, and as you approach areas of Pelham. Also fallen trees and debris on area roadways in Blount County. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Harmony. If tropical weather wasn't enough for commuters heading into the Magic City, parts of I-65 and Alabaster right now have been shut down.
Yeah, we've been telling you about this with a Harmony. Let's check in with Ashton Jones at WVTM 13. She's live from the interstate as we speak. Ashton, what are you seeing out there?
Well, Rick, Carla, the accident on I-65 southbound was pretty severe. We drove past it. Unfortunately, weren't able to get pictures of video. It was just too dangerous to pull off. But behind me, you can already see the runoff from this. Folks are being redirected to exit 234. This accident happened sometime around 4 a.m. and they've been working on cleaning it up ever since. That was supposed to be cleaned up around 5:30, but it just keeps getting pushed back. Now they're saying maybe 7, but based on this, it may take even longer. Thankfully, right now, the rain isn't heavy, but there's still a lot of ponding in the area. Just for your regular commute, you need to be careful about hydroplaning, things like that. I know I saw a little bit on my way into work, but we'll get more on this to you guys later in the show. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, thanks, Ashton. Again, Alabaster I-65. Ready to hear Eli say, touchdown, Alabama. Well, Bama in Miami this weekend in Atlanta for the season opener, and Crimson Tide fans are wondering who's going to start at quarterback for the Crimson Tide. Well, the answer is now in. Sophomore QB Bryce Young will lead the team against the Miami Hurricanes, a moment he, like everybody, has been waiting for.
It's very exciting, and especially last year, just being able to be a part of the team and learn, and even learning this year from my teammates it's been great. It's been a great experience, and I definitely don't take it for granted. I've been able to grow a lot from last year and from this off season, so I'm super excited to get started.
Okay, so Bryce replacing Mac Jones now with the Patriots. Tide kicking off at 2:30 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The roof will be open, so that means you will not be required to wear a mask while cheering on your team. Mask wearing is still encouraged throughout the rest of the stadium.
And the Auburn Tigers are opening the Brian Harsin era as they host Akron and Jordan-Hare this weekend. Harsin has had an eventful start with his tenure. He returned to practice yesterday after testing positive for COVID a few weeks ago. Now, Harsin says he doesn't feel behind, but there are a few things that the team needs to clean up. This is the team's second ever matchup with Akron. Auburn shut out the Zips 42-0 back in 1988. The kickoff is at 6 this Saturday.
Yeah, they get, I believe, Stephanie's alma mater in week 3. Well, as for the entire SEC, they announced their COVID cancellation policy. If a team cannot play due to COVID concerns, they lose. If both teams are unable to play to COVID, they both lose. You may be wondering what will happen when bowl season is here. Well, the breakers will be decided based on championship standings. And beyond play, schools facing financial losses will be considered for some reimbursement.
Alabama's new poet laureate breaking multiple barriers after the break. What Ashley M. Jones says makes her poetry stand out from her colleagues. You're watching WVTM 13.
Welcome back in at 625. WVTM 13 Project Community highlighting barrier-breaking women. And this week, Carla, you spoke with Alabama's new poet laureate who's in the spotlight.
That's right. Ashley M. Jones is the youngest and the first African-American to receive that title. Now, part of the job includes visits to Alabama schools and universities during her 4-year term. She founded the Magic City Poetry Festival, and for her works as she's also a creative writing teacher at the Alabama School of Fine Arts.
I would say that my poetry is me spread onto a page. So what that means is that it's honest, it's personal. I write a lot about history and social justice, but also about just my experience as a woman. And I try to be accessible above all else.
Hear more about Ashley's artistic inspiration. That's coming up tonight on WVTM 13 News at 6. And she was really interesting to talk to. She talked about how she went away like a lot of people do after college and went and had other experiences, and then realizes, there's all these things in the arts that I think would be great to do in Birmingham, where she's from. And so she came back and said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up shop here.
We forget Birmingham's a great town for arts.
Yeah.
I mean, from the symphony to ballet.
On a rainy day, too, the Museum of Fine Arts downtown.
Unbelievable.
All right, and it is going to be a rainy day today as we're still getting some of the impacts from Ida. We will have much more on this coming up right after the break. Stay with us. You're watching WVTM 13 News.
You're watching WVTM 13 News.
The calm after the storm, millions in the New Orleans area waking up in the dark as crews continue to assess the substantial amount of damage that was left behind by Hurricane Ida. And thanks for being with us this morning. I'm Carla Wade.
I'm Rick Carley. The damage speaking for itself this morning. All across the Pelican State, flooding turned roads into rivers, high winds ripping apart buildings within seconds. And while not as strong, Ida still packed a punch to Alabama's coastal communities. In fact, a tornado touched down in Mobile County.
No wind, no nothing, so it was dead still and started flying everywhere. It was horrifying.
Well, Alabama not out of the woods just yet. WVTM 13 meteorologist Stephanie Walker and Harmony Mendoza are with us tracking that tropical depression. So you say stuff maybe late today into dinner time we might be turning the corner?
Yes, we'll kind of see things start to improve. Not the case this morning and through a good portion of the day today, though. We are still going to have some very heavy rain, which could cause some flash flooding. The winds are expected to stay elevated as well, could gust 30 and 35 miles an hour. And there's still even an isolated tornado threat, too. Not a nice morning out there as it is wet just about in all locations. Currently raining 74 degrees right now in Tuscaloosa. There's a look at WVTM 13 Live Doppler, and it really looks like most of the heavier rain is just to the north of Tuscaloosa, but it's coming down pretty hard here up near Samantha and then up close to Jasper along the interstate there. We do still have an aerial flood advisory, even though the rain's let up a little bit right now into parts of Birmingham and Jefferson counties, and then some additional rain bands a little bit further to the east. So all of this is gradually going to be shifting east with time. And again, we do have at least the threat for some of our eastern counties specifically that we could see an isolated tornado, brief tornado today. Again, that threat will be pretty isolated in those areas. Otherwise, alert weather today with that threat for some additional flash flooding. Harmony?
Hey, Steph, but right now we do have an incident that's going to impact everybody who wants to get on I-65 northbound if you're going northbound outside of the Calera area. So the Shelby County Airport near the National Weather Service in Birmingham. Folks are only driving at about 4 miles per hour as they are trying to approach I-65. Road is closed from exit 234 to 238 as folks are getting into that closure. This is exit 234 right here. So that is Highway 87 northbound moving at 4 miles per hour. And then it intersects with Highway 31. And that's moving at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. And so everything moving slow. Now we're starting to see backups on 119. So if you're in Alabaster, anywhere near the Shelby County Airport, the National Weather Service in Birmingham, you've got to plan for at least 30 to 45 minutes of delays. And in Pinson, the water is covering up the roadways, Spring Street to Sweeney Hollow Road. Back to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Harmony. You've been talking about that crash down on I-65 North. Again, this tropical weather wasn't enough for commuters heading into the Magic City. Parts of I-65, again, North Alabaster shut down. We're going to join Ashton Jones of WVTM 13 right now, live from the interstate, to give us more on that. Good morning to you, Ashton.
Well, that accident is just to my left on I-65 southbound, but behind me you can see where they're redirecting some traffic. Right now they're being rerouted off of the Shelby County Airport exit. This accident happened sometime around 4 a.m. and they've been working to clean it up ever since. They expected to have it cleared around 5:30, but that just keeps getting pushed back, and right now they're saying sometime around 7, and who knows, could get pushed back based on how bad the traffic is right now. There's a lot of buildup on Highway 87 and also on 31. That's starting to pile up. Definitely avoid the area if possible. If not, just be prepared to wait a little bit longer, and just on your regular commute, of course, be careful for ponding on the roads. Thankfully, the rain has let up since then, but still there's some danger that you could hydroplane on your way to work, so just be careful with that. Back to you, Rick.
Thanks, Ashton. Actually, it's Carla. With Louisiana and Ida's rearview mirror, crews can start assessing the damage that was left behind by the Category 4 hurricane. These drone shots show just how strong those winds were, causing brick walls to collapse. Those power lines brought down, roofs were just ripped from those buildings there. Now, flooding remains a threat for a lot of coastal communities. A lot of people saw their streets there just transformed into rivers. And for people living around New Orleans, they held their breath as the storm hit, hoping that that levee system would keep the storm surge out.
And most fared quite well, but one levee south of the city did fail. And this put hundreds of folks living in Lafitte in immediate danger. Several feet of water actually rushed in. Dozens of boats were actually deployed to search for residents. Many of those folks didn't have phone service to call out for help. Thankfully, only a few minor injuries were reported there.
And high winds from that storm brought down a transmission tower just west of New Orleans, leaving the entire city and parts of the neighboring Jefferson Parish in the dark. The Coast Guard working to remove all of those down power lines from the Mississippi River. And among the damage from Ida, the place where a young Louis Armstrong once practiced his trumpet after his shift. The Karnofsky Tailor Shop opened for business nearly 100 years ago, but it was high winds that reduced it to a pile of rubble.
While most damage is centered around coastal Louisiana, as you can imagine, Ida's impact has been felt at the gas pump by millions across the southeast. Oil companies say their precautionary measures should be able to keep prices somewhat under control. Nearly all the production in the Gulf of Mexico was shut down ahead of Ida's landfall. And the Colonial Pipeline has closed the lines that run from Houston all the way up to North Carolina, and that would include the section that runs through Birmingham, Oxford, and up to the northeast. Now, while these pipelines have weathered the storm, experts say prolonged power outages will prevent them from reopening in the coming days. The silver lining here is that they don't anticipate a similar situation to Hurricane Katrina, which is good, when refineries were off the grid for months. Gas prices then shot up nearly 50 cents a gallon. Well, this time around, experts say the increase should only be about 15 cents a gallon at the most. Right now, the current price of regular gas in Birmingham, about $2.75 a gallon. That means current projections, if they become a reality, the average would obviously pass $3 a gallon. Ahead of those price increases, Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall now warning against price gouging. This is whenever the price is 25% more than the last month's average, that's per gallon of gas. The length of those increases will be based on how quickly crews can restore power to those refineries. Now, of course, getting the lights back on is easier said than done. Crews still need to determine just how widespread the damage is across Louisiana.
And Jared Hill is live for us this morning from Jefferson Parish. That's right outside of New Orleans. Jared, what's the biggest issue that people are dealing with right now?
I mean, it's just that the power, guys, across this area, more than 850,000 people are still in the dark. And the problem is that officials can't say how long it'll be before the lights come back on. They're dealing with this on top of the physical damage. We've seen the flooding in some parts of Louisiana, as well as the buildings down, the power lines down, all that kind of stuff. Again, dealing with this in the dark. Fortunately, it seems that the cell service and the internet is back for a lot of people. So that is at least one of a bit of saving grace in this situation. But again, having to deal with all these things at the same time is pretty tough. Yesterday, President Biden talked about some of the steps that the federal government is taking when it comes to helping the power companies with assessing the damage, which some of them have said could take days in its own right. Take a listen to what the president had to say.
I've asked the Federal Aviation Administration to work today with Louisiana and Mississippi electric companies to authorize the use of surveillance drones to assess Ida's damage to energy infrastructure.
All right, so on top of all of that, this is going to be a hot day. Forecasted around 90 or so degrees, feels like it's going to be around 100 or so. That, coupled with not having any kind of AC, is going to make it a pretty tough situation. We've seen some people trying to fill up their gas tanks so that they can drive out or potentially even fly out, but the pumps are empty, and the airport says that flights are canceled today, a couple hundred canceled for tomorrow as well. So again, a lot of people are trying to figure out the best way to deal with what they have now until they can figure out something better. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Jared. Well, Louisiana, not the only state to feel Ida's wrath. Mobile Bay overtook the causeway, leaving some cars there stranded until those rescue crews could actually tow them out. We're taking a live look at the causeway this morning, and you can see cars moving pretty good there this morning. The water has since receded, but of course, those roads still slick with water.
Yeah, I can imagine. Further north, the National Weather Service confirms a tornado did touch down in Saraland. Take a look at this. The roofs ripped from homes along Highway 43. Motel in that area had a partial collapse due to high winds, and hundreds of families were left in the dark near Saraland High School. Several people were staying at a motel during that storm. One guest says he really lucked out by visiting his father when parts of the ceiling came crashing down.
My van would have been parked right here, and I luckily went to Walmart the other night and bought some groceries, some knickknacks, sandwiches, stuff like that, and like I said, I'm glad I wasn't. It's the good Lord that told me, Bobby, go see your dad today.
Well, at least 3 people were sent to hospitals with injuries from that tornado. Their condition is not known at this time. At least 4,200 people in Mobile County are now waking up without power.
And our time right now is 6:40, and that tornado moved north to Creola, taking out multiple trees along the way. Residents at a nearby trailer park say that the tornado was already in their backyard by the time they saw the weather alerts from Saraland. They say the abrupt changes in the weather took them by surprise.
We heard a little bit of whistling from it, but my father-in-law told me that, you know, he was in the living room watching TV, and he said it was pouring rain. Immediately stopped, no wind, no nothing, so it was dead still, and started flying everywhere. He said it was horrifying.
Now, roofing companies helped residents cover up any holes with tarps once that tornado cleared the area.
Well, Ida is still dumping buckets of rain across Alabama this morning, so be very careful. It's since been downgrading to that tropical depression, but there are still dangers associated with that storm. Let's bring back in Steph. I'm not saying it's wet out there, but at the Birmingham Zoo, the animals were walking 2 by 2. They were looking for an ark this morning. But no, I was coming up Highway 280 about 3 in the morning, and you can be driving fairly calm, and then you get one of those bands.
Right.
And boy, so you got to be careful out there.
Yeah, definitely slow down in those. We do also have still a threat for maybe an isolated tornado or two, especially in some of the eastern counties as we head through the day today. There's a look at the severe weather risk map. And again, it's mainly confined to the eastern spots. So kind of Jacksonville, Piedmont, Anniston, Lincoln, Talladega, Coosa County. So Rockford over toward Millerville and Ashland. Not a huge chance, but it is still possible with some of those bands as we head through the day today. Alert day, meaning with more heavy rain, some flash flooding, gusty winds are expected. Rain chances will stay pretty high through the day, even though I think it'll be a little bit more off and on. You can see our current wind gusts. Winds have been gusting 25, 26 miles an hour and could gust 30 and even up to 35 miles an hour at times through the day. Harmony?
Hey, Steph, this is a new update right now. Emergency managers are now warning folks that the road is closed from exit 234 to County Road 87 to exit 238, which is Highway 31. So let me get you a little bit more information. As you approach this particular stretch of roadway, this is right near the Shelby County Airport, right near the National Weather Service in Birmingham. I-65 northbound is only moving at about 5 miles per hour, and then everyone is being rerouted at exit 234. So that's Highway 87 northbound. You can see it's moving at 6 miles per hour and moving very slowly now. Highway 31 several miles prior to exit 234, so it's slowing down, I'd say roughly at about exit 230. And this all happened, like Rick said, around 3 o'clock in the morning from those outer bands from Ida. We'll have more weather and traffic coming up after the break. You're watching WBTM 13 News.
Hey everybody, we are still tracking the remnants of Ida. It's a depression now, but today is still an alert day because we are still expecting some of those bands to give us some heavy downpours at times, gusty winds, and even an isolated tornado threat too, especially for some of our eastern counties. We are tracking the rain from Ida live and in real time on WVTM 13 Live Doppler, and there are still several tropical showers ongoing right now. There may even be a little bit of a break kind of between these two main areas, but there's still some scattered showers that have kind of developed in between that. But the rain really starting now to move back into western sections of Jefferson County. So maybe for the Oak Grove and eventually Pleasant Grove area, the rain will start to pick back up in intensity as all of this kind of continues to rotate toward the metro area this morning. But coming down pretty hard through Fayette and over toward Jasper and then back through Samantha as well. Winds have been very gusty overnight and this morning. We've got current wind gusts near 25 miles an hour in Birmingham and in Tuscaloosa. A wind advisory is in effect through early this evening. Sustained winds will be between 15 to 25, and we could see some gusts up to 30, maybe even 35 miles an hour at times. And those are the counties that we're most concerned with for maybe an isolated tornado as we head through the day, and especially this afternoon as things start to heat up a little bit more. Flash flood watch continues as well through this evening with perhaps an additional 1 to 2 inches of rain possible, and maybe even some locally higher amounts than that. So the forecast through the rest of the day today will keep that alert weather going through this morning and through about 5 o'clock this afternoon before we'll finally start to see kind of our rain chances backing off a little bit more. Rain chances really dropping for tomorrow and the rest of the week. The humidity is going to drop as well by Thursday, Friday. Harmony?
Like to hear that. Thanks so much, Steph. I-65 northbound, this is going to be a mess, folks. You have really got to plan